I watched the Blood of My Blood trailer frame by frame, and I caught a major change to the story of Ellen MacKenzie, so let's talk about it. As always, this will have spoilers for the books and the TV show, so if you are looking to avoid those, please do keep on scrolling. Blood of My Blood comes out so soon, and I know most people are talking about Claire's parents, but I am still most excited to see Ellen MacKenzie and Brian Fraser play out on screen because we actually have a lot of context about them from the original source material. Now, we know that the show version of the story for both Claire's parents and Jamie's parents is not taken from the books. It's not from the source material, and they have not asked Diana Gabaldon for her input about the story of Ellen and Brian. She is actually writing a separate book that will give that story in detail. So again, the showrunners have taken some liberties here with the story of Ellen and Brian, which is why I was shocked when I watched the trailer and I saw the marriage of Ellen and Malcolm Grant playing out on screen. Now, if you haven't read the books, this probably wouldn't have been a big deal to you, but if you have, then you know that Ellen and Brian's relationship was very much like a Romeo and Juliet for both clans. The Mackenzies and the Frasers did not like one another. Brian was also the bastard son of the old fox, and so there was just a lot working against the two of them when they first met as young kids, essentially. And for Ellen, she also had the added pressure from her brothers to marry someone that they chose for her. If you were unaware and hadn't read the books, Ellen's father would have passed away probably pretty soon before the events of Blood of My Blood began, which puts Colum into this very powerful position as clan leader of Clan MacKenzie, and Dougal obviously is his henchman of sorts. And part of that relationship dynamic that she has with her brothers changes when Colum gets put into that position of power, because he is trying to then navigate his life in a way that puts the clan in the best position politically. And in doing so, that means that his sisters, Jocasta and Ellen, both become pawns, essentially, that he can use to strengthen his allegiances and alliances with other clan members. And so he decides that Ellen should marry Malcolm Grant so that the Grant clan and the Mackenzies can become stronger. And Ellen absolutely refuses. I think this scene, which is one of those pause and rewind because it was just shot so beautifully, probably is the best way that they can showcase how in pain Ellen is around the events of her family and the loss of her father. It was said that she was extremely close with her father, and so losing him is likely going to send her spiraling, and then having her brothers essentially deny her what she wants, and that is the freedom of marrying who she chooses, will probably only amplify that. Now, the other wrinkle in this is that every piece of information that we've ever heard about Brian and Ellen and their elopement and their marriage has been told through multiple filters. And what I mean by that is that normally as a book reader, it is Jamie telling Claire the story of his parents, and Jamie was told that story either by his father, by Myrta, or by people within the clan Mackenzie. And so their version of events is going to probably be different than the truth. And so what's unique about a show and something like Blood of My Blood is that now the show can kind of choose what they want the canon to be. And in the books, pretty much anything that Jamie was told as a kid, you can infer that someone kind of added their own lens to the version. So if Myrta was in love with Ellen as a young man, then he is going to speak of her affectionately. That might be different than, say, Colum or Dougal speaking about Ellen, because it is said that after she ran away with Brian, her and Colum actually never spoke to one another again. Now, the story that we have been told via Jamie and Myrta and various other people in the books is that Ellen offended Malcolm Grant so much at a gathering in 1716 that he left unannounced, and that same night, Ellen ran away with Brian and the two of them eloped with one another. It is also then said that they ended up moving to Lallybroch and they harbored themselves away so that when she became pregnant and gave birth to their child, nobody could deny that the two of them were then married, and that was in 1716, so a full year later. They were married in 1715, but I don't think that anyone really believed the marriage until she had a child. So that's kind of the lore, so to speak. So you can imagine the surprise that I felt when I saw her marrying Malcolm Grant in the Blood of My Blood trailer here, because that was never brought up as an option of what took place that night in any of the stories about their marriage or elopement or relationship in the books. That means that if she did go through with the marriage to Malcolm Grant, then there's going to be a lot of trickle-down effects from this that obviously as a book reader we have not explored yet, so I'm excited to see that play out on screen. Then we see in these follow-up shots, there's one here where Ellen goes to visit Brian in the night and she tells him, "I will get out of it, I promise." And clearly there's going to be something going on here for her to get out of a marriage that we just saw her go through with on screen. And then this shot here where they're standing on the street, this man approaches Brian from behind and then punches him. This could be someone from the MacKenzie clan because they're coming to protect Ellen from him, and we know that the Frasers and the Mackenzies did not get along at this point in time. It could also be someone from Clan Grant potentially, but I have a feeling it's probably a Mackenzie. But from the trailer, it looks like the two of them were kind of courting one another over the course of Column trying to initiate this marriage with Malcolm Grant, and we see that Myrta likely follows them and spies on them a little bit and sees this unfolding in real time, which I can't wait to see because we know that Myrta had a huge crush on Ellen as a young man. Now, what's even more interesting is that we know that Julia Morrison, Claire's mother, travels back through the stones and ends up at Castle Leoch in 1714. That's the date that we hear the maid tell her in the trailer. And so if Julia is in Leoch in 1714 and Ellen doesn't marry Brian until 1715, how long is Julia going to be back in time? That is a very interesting question, and I'm sure the pacing of this show is going to come up as a question I have very early on because I'm curious how they're going to cover their whole story. I said this in my trailer review, they're really painting Julia as almost the catalyst for this entire relationship even happening because she seems to encourage Ellen to go after Brian and be with him. And so that's going to be a very interesting angle that gets incorporated into this whole tale as well, and how maybe the show is going to tie in the lore of this mysterious woman, Julia, and her involvement in the story. What would Julia come up as in their family stories? Like, does Ellen ever talk about her? Did she tell Brian about her? I'm so curious how they might loop that back into the main series. But for Ellen, the important timeline moments that we need to understand are that her and Julia are together in 1714. She supposedly marries Brian in 1715. There's a gathering with Malcolm Grant mixed in there in 1715 or 16, and then she gives birth to their first child in 1716 at Lallybroch. Jamie is not born until 1721, and then Ellen passes away in 1729 during childbirth. So we got a lot to cover with Ellen MacKenzie. From the trailer, it looks like they're really trying to play up the similarities between Brian and Ellen and Jamie and Claire, definitely through the shot composition and some of the scenes that we seem to be getting with the two of them. But I'm very curious how they're going to make their story feel more unique, and hopefully it's not like a carbon copy of Jamie and Claire, because as much as I love that, I really hope that they give these two their own identities and their own story and make them feel different somehow. I don't know how that is. I think Ellen's going to be a fun character for them to explore, given that we know so much but have seen so little of her, that we're really going to get probably a very full picture of Ellen early on and how strong she is and how much of that plays into the Jamie character that we know, who is one of my favorite characters of all time, how his parents shaped him, especially Ellen, given that she passes away so early on in his life, but her legend and what everyone speaks of her is definitely felt by him even as an adult. So I'm really excited to see that play out on screen.